Marco Huck versus Firat Arslan. The rematch is taking place on January 25th in Stuttgart, Germany. Now, for those of you who didn't see the first fight, I can absolutely guarantee you that it was one of the worst robberies in boxing for the past 5 years. I mean, it was one of the worst robberies I can remember seeing ever, to be honest with you. But certainly in the last 5 years, it was one of the worst, if not the worst robbery. It was right up there with Gabriel Campillo against Tavoris Cloud and Derek Chisora against Robert Helenius. It was a shocking robbery. And anyone who disputes the fact that this fight was a robbery, you need to go watch the fight again. You know, you need to go watch the fight again. Turn the sound off. Forget about the commentators. Turn the sound off. Go watch the fight again, because I'm telling you right now, the fight wasn't close in any way. Not only did Firat Arslan dominate the fight in terms of ring generalship, pushing Marco Huck back the whole night, initiating all the action, but he also landed the cleaner, more effective punches in just about every round, and he also outworked Marco Huck. So on what grounds did Marco Huck win even 4 or 5 rounds in the fight? On what grounds did he win those rounds? Because he wasn't outworking Arslan. He wasn't landing the cleaner, more effective punches. He wasn't initiating the action. He wasn't the ring general. So how the hell can you make any case for Marco Huck winning a majority of the rounds in that fight? Completely ridiculous. And all I can say is there are a lot of people out there who actually thought the fight was close. They thought Arslan won, but it was close. I'm telling you, you need to go watch the fight again without the sound, because I think you were seriously influenced by the commentary, or you weren't watching close enough. Because a lot of the action was up close. There was a lot of short punches going in. But, you know, I've watched the fight several times, and I actually did an analysis of one of the rounds, which people say was a close round, which was the 8th. People say that it was a close round and it could have gone either way. And I did a video analysis of that round. If the analysis is still up, I'll post a link to it in my boxing group on Facebook, Hatman Boxing. And because I'm not sure if I left it up or not. But if it's up, I'll put a link to that particular round. And that was a round that people said was close. And I proved conclusively with a video analysis of that round, a blow-by-blow analysis, that even the 8th round, which people say was close, wasn't close in the slightest. It wasn't even nearly close. It was a clear Firat Arslan round. Now, I've got no allegiance to Firat Arslan. I don't know the guy. It was actually the first time I'd ever seen him fight, when he fought Marco Huck the first time. I'm not Turkish. I don't personally know any Turkish people. I've met some Turkish people. I don't know any Turkish people in my actual circle. So, you know, I don't have any, because obviously Firat Arslan is Turkish. I believe he lives in Germany, but he's Turkish. I don't have any allegiance to the Turkish community or anything like that. I'm not against them, but, you know, I don't have any bias for them, etc. So I've got no other reason to say that Arslan clearly won the first fight and was robbed, other than my objective, you know, analysis and observations. That's it. You know, there's no agenda here. And as far as I can see, I've watched the fight several times. Arslan was robbed shockingly in the first fight with Marco Huck. He absolutely dominated that fight, and he actually beat Marco Huck up. And, you know, very few fighters have actually managed to do that to Marco Huck. But Firat Arslan was the one guy. Now, Arslan, for those of you who ain't seen him, he's a short fighter. He's only around 5'11". He's a southpaw, and he's very heavily muscled. The surprising thing about Firat Arslan is that he's, I believe now, around 42 or 43 years old. So he was around 40 or 41 or 42 when the first fight took place. First fight was, when was it? I think it was in 2012. We're now in 2014. So he's like 2 years older than he was, or he will be 2 years older than he was, you know, during the first fight. And like I say, he was no spring chicken back then. He was in his 40s. Now he's like 42, 43 years old. So, you know, at this kind of age, things can catch up. You know, Father Time can catch up with a fighter almost overnight. We've seen it so many times over the years when a fighter reaches these kind of ages, even before this age, and they seem to kind of, you know, fall apart almost overnight. Glenn Johnson is a good example of that, actually. You know, when Glenn Johnson was going on into his 40s, but still having success. But then all of a sudden, he started losing, and then he was losing to everyone. And he was losing to a much lower caliber of opponent than he'd previously lost to, you know, for the previous 5 or 6 or 7 years in his career. So fighters can age dramatically overnight. It remains to be seen if that will happen to Firat Arslan. I suspect it won't, because he's still burning inside from the injustice, which was the first Marco Huck fight, which he blatantly won. And he said as much after the fight. He called the Sauerlands a bunch of crooks and all that kind of stuff. And I'm surprised he managed to get himself a rematch, given the fact that he really laid into the promotional outfit afterwards and accused them of corruption. So I'm surprised he managed to get the rematch. But here we are, 2 fights on. He had an intermediary fight after the first Huck fight, which he won. It was a 10-round unanimous decision. And now he goes into the rematch with Marco Huck. And as far as how I see the fight going, I don't see any reason to believe, I don't see any reason to think that Firat Arslan won't win the fight again, because he won the first fight. He just didn't get the decision from the judges because it was some hometown cooking. Obviously, they're both based in Germany, but Marco Huck was the house fighter, so to speak. So, Huck really couldn't do anything with Arslan in that first fight. He couldn't do anything. He tried to fight him on the inside. He tried to box him long. He couldn't do anything to this guy. He couldn't outwork him. He couldn't outstrength him. He just seemed paralyzed against Arslan. Now, it is possible. Marco Huck had been very active in the lead up to the Arslan fight. It had several tough fights. So it is possible that maybe he was a little bit worn out going into the first Arslan fight, and that, he just needed a little bit of a break. So that fight may not be representative of the true Marco Huck. That is possible. That is definitely possible, because fighters do get tired when they have a busy schedule, especially when you're in tough, grueling 12-round fights. You're taking a lot of punches to the head and body. It takes a toll on you, and sometimes you need a break from that kind of stuff, and it can start bringing your performances down unless you get that break. So it is a possibility that was a below par Marco Huck that night, and that we'll see a much better version of Marco Huck in the rematch. That is definitely possible. And in fact, I'm expecting to see a better Marco Huck in the rematch, because there needs to be a better Marco Huck in the rematch, and he knows it, right? He knows that he has to be better. I mean, he may feel that he's going to get a hometown decision again, but I think for his own pride, because Marco Huck is a very proud guy, right? He's a very macho kind of guy. So for his own pride, he feels like he needs to win this fight more convincingly than the first fight. That's what I believe. So I think that he's going to try everything he can in training and whatnot to make sure that he handles Arslan better than he did the first time around. But again, I think Arslan's victory, and it was a victory, in every sense of the word, except for on paper. But yeah, Arslan's victory was so comprehensive that I just can't see Marco Huck improving enough to be able to deal with Firat Arslan. And I'm taking Firat Arslan to win the fight again. He may not get it on the cards, but I think he's going to win in the ring, So I'm not necessarily saying he's going to get the decision, because he didn't get it the first time around, but he will win the fight. Yeah, that's what I'm going for. I'm going for Arslan to win the fight again, probably on points. Whether or not he gets the decision, who knows? But drop your comments below. Let me know if you saw the first fight and how you felt about it and how you see the rematch going. This is Hat Man. I'm out.